Have you ever wondered why simple things at work take forever? The data you need is over here, while the system you need is over here. Processes break, admin drags, reports arrive late, and everything just feels harder than it should. See, that's friction. And it's not just a simple annoyance. It can hamper and hinder you and your team at every single step. And the promise of digital transformation is supposed to fix this. But if you get it wrong, sometimes the medicine can be worse than the illness. So in this video, we're going to talk about how you can get your transformation absolutely spot on and take your team to the next level. Digital transformation, at its essence, is about taking your people on a journey of adopting new systems, new processes, and new technologies that will enable you to improve really every area of your business and remove so many of the constraints that get in the way of delivering the outcomes that matter. So that's the promise of it. So what's the problem? Well, the problem often is that you introduce these programs and before you realize it, the program has become bigger, messier, and more confusing than the problems it was trying to originally tackle. Dozens of work streams, layers of governance, stretched teams, and all the while, new tools, new teams, new documents, new meetings, that just simply causes overwhelm for everyone. You set out to remove friction, and somehow you end up with more. I don't want that for you or your team. So here are a number of tips that will ensure that you avoid the most common pitfalls and you can deliver transformation that actually works. Okay, so tip number one is to be crystal clear on the pain you're trying to solve. Now that sounds really obvious, but it's becoming increasingly common in this space of strategy and culture to hook onto amorphous terms that don't really mean anything. You know, things like a digital first culture, or to have innovation at the heart of everything we do, or to future-proof our service delivery. Again, these are principles that can be guiding lights in your journey, but the end stop should really be outcomes that are measurable, that are very understandable to everyone in your organization, and that can ultimately just create a barometer of whether the transformation is worth it or not. Because trust me, in the middle, it gets very messy oftentimes. And what pushes you through is when you've got a benefit or a pain resolution that is a non-negotiable value add to our organization. So tip number two is to ignore the myth that you need to transform everything. You know, too often transformation is used as a bit of a bucket to just have about 50 different change projects that you want to get funding for. And so you can put it all together and you think, well, if we put out these 50 fires, will be a completely different organization. And that is very rarely the case. You're going to get overwhelmed, you're going to run out of money, and ultimately by the end of it, there'll be a lot of change fatigue, but sometimes it'll be very difficult to see what has actually changed and what has actually landed. Which leads me on to tip number three. Do you need to identify the constraints? I'm a massive believer in the theory of constraints. So often it can feel like there are 30 fires all blazing at once. We need to put every single one of them out. And the mere thought of that is overwhelming. In reality, it's often the case that there are one or two, in some really rare cases, three major constraints that when resolved will eliminate 95% of the friction and the pain caused by those other issues. Now, the reason we often don't go for that is because either we don't want to do the work of really figuring out and drilling down to what's the cause behind the cause behind the cause. Also, though, sometimes we do know actually what the big constraint in our organization is, but we put it in the too difficult box. And so we just tackle the low-hanging fruit. You know, if you are going to exhaust a lot of resource and time and money, you want to throw it at a thing that, if unlocked, is going to be truly transformative. If you apply this theory of constraint type thinking, you are going to radically kill the noise, kill all the overwhelm. It will keep you clear and focused on what needs to be done, and it will give you the best chance of success in truly landing your transformation. Tip number four, you need to treat technology as an enabler, not a purpose in of itself, especially in this age of AI that we're in, where there's just this, we all feel it, there's this restlessness that we just need to be deploying, we don't know what, but something. If you take a technology-led approach to your transformation, you are going to, one, fall into shiny object syndrome. You're not actually going to land anything of real significance because it always comes back to the first principles of what are you trying to solve, and then how can technology or systems be used as a way to achieve that. It sounds boring, but this is what's going to keep you on track. The other danger around being technology led is you will become fodder for the supplier vendor market, who obviously constantly selling technology. There are so many different options, and it can feel, I've sat in those presentations, it can feel so enticing. You need this. You get locked into certain suppliers for things that you don't even know whether you truly need. And it becomes a really vicious cycle. What you might actually find is that for some big problems, the actual solution might not be this complete drastic overwhelm that you think. And if it is, you'll be much better equipped to tackle it if you have a problem-focused approach rather than a technology-led one. A good litmus test is, if you are going to introduce some tech, you should be able to articulate its value as simply as, we are using technology A to improve process B to drive outcome C. Tip number 5, it's more of a statement really to help give you clarity. And I would say that 90% of the work of digital transformation is about removing the friction of how information and data moves around your organization and enables better decisions and better actions. And we're going to unpack this idea a lot more on this channel. So maybe I'll just leave it at that for now. Tip number 6, it's another myth. Ignore the myth of the single system. This idea, you'll hear phrases like one-stop shop, unified platform, single solution. This system does everything. Now, all these promises, which normally say, hey, you're overwhelmed, your data, your information is scattered, nothing is joined up, put everything in this box over here, normally a piece of software, and that's going to solve everything. Now, look, so sometimes those types of solutions can be really helpful, but whether you go for that solution or not, nothing is really singular. The skill and the work of transformation, so much of it is identifying all the different systems and pieces of your organization, where data sits, where people work, and how can we reliably move data and information through these different systems safely, securely, quickly, and reliably. And if you can do that, you can effectively have 10 different systems that work as one. And too often times, organizations are just running to vendors that are promising, hey, just put all your eggs in this basket and we'll solve all your problems. And if you haven't thought it through, you can, triple the amount of pain that you currently have. So what we're talking about here, if I can just use a technical term for a moment, is interoperability, which is the idea of how we connect different systems to act as one. We'll get into this a lot more, but don't just think about having to eliminate different systems, but how you can better connect them, and you can still achieve that same seamless experience without having to completely rip up the foundations of how your organization works. Tip number 7, and there's a little bit of bias here, given my background career in communication and engagement, but it really is about your people. It's not just about the implementation of technology. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, but taking your people on that journey of adoption, the biggest part of which is about buy-in. Honestly, more than training, more than monitoring, the biggest driver in adoption will be the degree to which your people are convinced that this transformation will solve their pain and meaningfully move things forward. Now, there's obviously a lot there around storytelling and communicating, and we'll cover all of that. But if there's one thing I want to take away from this video, is that thinking about your people and their journey of adoption is as important as any other element in this entire transformation. So we'll leave it there. And what I'll say is that we're going to start ramping up content on this channel again, particularly in this area of digital transformation. So I encourage you to subscribe if you haven't. If this video has been helpful in any way, I'd appreciate a like or comment. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video. Take care.